Hi, Bob Hughes here with JD Squared. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our rotary cutting and bending software called Camelot. First of all, why did we create it? A couple years ago, we started on this project, and it was done because at JD Squared, we like total control of our products every level. So for instance, on our plasma and wood routers and rotary cutter, we made the conscientious decision 4 or 5 years ago to create our own motion control boards, do the software and everything. And the reason we did that was because if we built our machinery around somebody else's software or hardware, and they decided 5, 10 years down the road they no longer wanted to support that software, it was non-profitable, well, we're screwed. And by us, I mean you, if you bought my machine, because we wouldn't be able to get the replacement part. So that's why we created our own control boards, and that's why we wrote our own software. So 2 years ago, when we decided we're going to build the rotary cutters, we started on the software, and we set very specific goals for what it will be able to do and what it will never do. And what it will do and can do today is complete structural design. So if you're building, let's just say, for instance, a roll cage in a race car, or picket fencing, or monkey bars, a gym, a cell phone tower, whatever, it does that extremely well. It's a structural design for shapes, round, square, rectangular, and some others. It does that very well. It also allows you to bend the material and unbend it so that you can animate it in a tube bender, get your marks, where to put your marks, how much tubing do you need. It does all that extremely well. And then lastly, it cuts these materials. So you could export it, you could create a job with it in the software, load the tubing up into our rotary cutter and cut it. Now, the rotary cutting part of the software will only be applicable to our machines. We're not writing software for the world to use. This is for JD Squared machinery. Now, if you have a tube bender, doesn't matter what tube bender you have or tube notcher, they're all basically the same. They bend a piece of tubing. When it comes to rotary cutters, though, we are only going to, the only people that ever see the rotary cutting functions are people who bought either a rotary cutter attachment or a rotary cutter from us. That's what it was written for. Now, so you already know what the purpose of the software is. Now, here's what it will not do ever. Anything other than those 3 functions. At least I'm pretty damn sure. I want to keep my word right there. So we have people already, they're using software, Bentech, for instance, and Bentech offers sheet metal modules and some other modules, I believe. And I've been asked twice in the last year or so, are we going to add sheet metal to the machine? The answer is no. And the reason that is, it's no offense to Bentech, we're in the exact same boat. We do not have the ability to keep up with the big boys. Autodesk, who writes Fusion 360, SolidWorks. These guys, they have an army of software developers. So if somebody wants to use sheet metal in a design, my question is, well, why stop at sheet metal? Because I could take Fusion 360, design an entire cage, put sheet metal in it, then I could put a small block Chevy in it, the transmission, the rear end, the wheels, all kinds of stuff, the battery. I could put it all in it. Why would I want to try to write a software that's basically going to be minimalist compared to SolidWorks, Fusion, stuff like that? So we decided we're not going to. Now, what we do have in our software is the ability to import that roll cage that you designed in Fusion or 360, and then we can process all of the bends, the cutting, everything in our software. And the bottom line is, in a million years, we're not going to write software as good as Fusion 360 or SolidWorks. We're just too small of a company. It ain't going to happen. So anyway, that's features that we suggest you use a high-end program for that. Now, we're going to be adding a lot of features to it. Right now, the program is feature-rich. We've been showing a lot of people the software. We've got testers out there. Everybody seems to be very happy. But there are clearly a lot of features we're going to add. So what we feel that we've accomplished as version 1.0 release is the functionality that will handle high 90% of all people jobs, what they're doing. Most people just want to bend the tubing, figure out how long to cut it, where to put the marks and where to bend it, and how to cut the ends. Our software does all that extremely well. It has nesting, multi-part cutting, things like that. So we're done. Now, what you are going to see, though, is very quickly, very very short interval between updates. So when we come out with a new feature, like currently we're implementing one called open space intersections. I'll describe that to you when it comes out. It's a really cool feature. Well, as soon as that puppy's done, I don't want to wait for a major release. You know, a lot of companies like to release things 3, 4, 6 month intervals. We don't want to do that. We want you to have this thing the next day. So that's the way our software is configured. It looks for updates, it'll update. And as we add all these bells and whistles and new enhancements to it, you'll be able to get them right away. Now, having said that, let's talk about BenTech software for a minute. I don't know a whole lot about it. I never really looked at it. In fact, I saw it for the first time about 2 months ago. I looked at it for about 5 or 10 minutes with one of my engineers, and that's all I've looked at it. And the reason I didn't do it was we at JD Squared, we're builders, we're fabricators, we make things. We're not just a software company. So we have a particular way of thinking. We also interface all the time with other fabricators. We know how they think. So I decided I'm not going to look at anybody else's software. Obviously, I know how to use Fusion and SolidWorks, but I didn't want to look at BenTech in particular because, let's face it, BenTech's the only other game in town, because I didn't want it to influence our thought process. Having said that, we have a lot of people that do use BenTech and have looked at it and have given us pointers of things to do and not to do. Now, there are some features in BenTech that our software currently is not doing. I believe drawing is one of them. We are working on those. They are going to be rolling out. We just wanted to handle the 3 major things, design, bending, and cutting in our software. So we've done that. Now, if you want to add features to it, and we already have a pretty good list of really cool features we'll be adding, all you have to do is submit a request. And then we can prioritize what is the most, you know, the things that are going to affect the most people the quickest and bring them out. So anyway, that's how we'll handle all of that right there. Now, as far as purchasing, I'm trying to answer some questions here that people have asked us. One of them is, how are you going to sell it? We're going to sell at first and maybe forever a subscription-based model. It's going to be extremely affordable, and it's designed to allow us to roll out updates very quickly, but also to have a relatively predictable income stream so that we could pay the developers, you know. And here's what I've learned happens over the years, and I'm sure it's happened to you too. I have a small mountain of software that I've bought over the years that, you know, you pay $100, $200 for it, $500, whatever, and you get the software. Hell, I got software that I paid $15,000 for it, SmartCam, back in the day. And then 5 years later, they've discontinued it, you know. And the reason that happens is, one of them is that the company sells a bunch of software up front. It's a new thing. People are buying it. Money's rolling in. Everything's going good. Then the sales start slowing down. Finally, it reaches a point to where people are not paying their upgrade, their maintenance fee, because they're happy where the software is at. It gets to the point where you can't afford to pay the developers no more. So what happens? The software is discontinued. It's gone. Subscription-based software, even though I used to hate subscription-based software, the idea of it, I've come to learn the advantage of it. So for instance, I have Fusion 360, a subscription. I have my PDF editor is on a subscription. I have other software that's subscription-based, and I kind of like it because I get rollouts of updates pretty quickly. So we decided we're going to implement that model. So if you're out in the country and you want to use our software, keep in mind that it's always going to phone home. It's going to check the license to see if it's a valid, you know, valid installation. So you may have to, if you don't have any internet out there, you have to get a phone, some kind of hotspot. We don't have any plans of making a standalone desktop version of the software. So that answers some questions for some people. It's easy, by the way, to set up a hotspot. You could use your phone, you know, where the software can phone home. It's still installed on your computer. It's not running over the internet. It's just going to phone home and see, is it a legal copy, you know? So anyway, I think I've answered most of the questions, the purpose and why we did it, stuff like that. So let me go ahead real quick and show you what Camelot does right now. Now, keep in mind, this is right now. It's very capable software, but 5 or 6 months, there's going to be more and more and more features into it. So you're going to be looking for videos. Oh, and that's how I'm going to handle that problem, by the way, is we had a feature, let's just say intersecting, open space intersection points. what am I going to do? Reshoot the whole video, you know, how to use the frame editor? No, we're going to go and do little mini videos. So like, for instance, I did a video earlier today explaining absolute versus relative positioning of points. So we're going to be doing a lot of those, and maybe every 6 months we may do a mainline video that describes all the features in the frame editor. So keep in mind, look for the latest videos, and then look if the video came out a few months earlier that describes the frame editor, you may see other ones that are tagged with the frame editor code or the keywords that have updates to it. Just watch them. They're going to be short. They're just going to tell you the new features. Another thing about the software, most of the instructions how to use the software are going to be video based. We've discovered, man, unfortunately, and people, I'm the same way, I'm just as bad. People don't read directions. They won't do it. So we are adding help files to it that are describing things, but currently we're more focused on adding what we consider essential features or things that would make somebody's life much, much easier than we are writing the help documentation. You will see it. If you have a problem, give me a call. I'll bang out the help documentation. But right now, it's all going to be video based for a little while, at least till the end of this year, you know, or something like that. Anyway, all right, thanks, and let's buzz over to the screen, and I'll show you a little bit about Camelot. All right, here we go.
Okay, I've got Camelot in front of me here. Let's go ahead. One of the first features I mentioned earlier, we're going to go ahead and create a frame. What we're going to do is we're going to add a new tube, and let's just go ahead real fast and make a quick bar that resembles a roll bar. I want to go up to 24 inches absolutely. Then I want to go ahead and add another point. I've measured my roof. I need the center of my tubing at, we'll say, 36 inches tall, but I want it to kick in 4 inches because of the side windows in the door. Then I want to go ahead. I measured my roof line. I like to go over 40 inches. We do that. And then now we're going to go, now we're on the other side of the car, so we're going to go back to 24 inches there. But we are also going to kick over 4 inches for the window, the tilt of the window, kind of like what we did right here. And finally, we are going to go back to the floor, which was 0. Okay, so that's our roll bar right there. Pretty easy, pretty quick to develop. Now, let me show you something that's kind of neat. Let's go ahead and edit it. And this time we're going to pick this point right here. And I've got a new car I'm doing. I want a new bar. I don't want this thing to be 40 inches wide. You can see it says 40 up here. I want it to be, I don't know, say 60 inches wide, right? There you go. Now it's that much. You just basically made yourself a new roll bar without having to create a roll bar. So it worked out, you know, pretty good right there. Now let's go ahead and close this tool. Now we're going to go ahead and add another tube to it, a relatively simple tube. We're going to go, we're going to say it's driven. One end is driven by one of the reference points. These little small circles you see here are reference points. Now you can create a reference point anywhere you want on this tube. You're not restricted to these. These just happen to be the most common ones, so we automatically create those reference points for you. Anyway, we do that. We're going to add another point, and we're going to select, let's just say, I don't know, here. Okay, there we go. Now we have added another part to it. So we've got that. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to notch the ends, right? So let's just go over here and select Cut Tubes. Select tubes you want to cut. We're going to pick that one right there. We're going to cut with all shapes that intersect it. So we get both ends at one time. We hit Apply. And there you go. There's your cut on that end right there. And if you go here, you've got your cut that's actually in the middle of the bend up here. That's just to give you an example of what that does right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and close out that. Now, obviously you could add as many tubes as you want. This structure could be quite complicated. There's the ability to copy frames, mirror frames, rotate the frames, you know, things like that. You could change, instead of having a bend here, for instance, you could miter the selected tubes. You could do things like that. Once again, that's a subject of a more in-depth video on how to use the software. Now, let's go ahead and apply and close. Now, the next functionality was to be able to bend the tubing. So let's select this one right here, bend selected tube, and there you go. This is your tube right here. In this dialog here, I could pick, do I have a static die like one of our Model 4 benders where the die doesn't rotate, or do I have a rotating die? Now keep in mind, this software can be used for anybody's bender. It's not strictly a JD Squared bender or a notcher. It's basically just a generic. So the software works for all that. It works real well. We're getting ready to add features later that shows our benders in it with a floor and everything, so that you can look at things like interference fit, things like that. But you know, most people, to be honest with you, a lot of that's just eye candy, you know. Anyway, you could start the animation process. You could do your bends, or we could even reorder the bends right here. I don't want this bend. You see it's in green right there. I may want to move it up to make it the second bend. And you see the red bar? That's your lead in that's marked on a die. And you may say, hey, I want this this particular one here. I don't want to start there. I'm having a problem. I'm hitting my frame or something. And you notice if I click on it over here, it highlights it also. I could just say from the end, and you see how it switched ends right there. Now, if I zoom back out, and I say this time let's go with a static die. The die doesn't rotate. And I say start. Notice the order of bends that it did it in right there. So you could reorder the bends. So that's the bending of the animation right there. Now if you hit the dimensions tab, here it shows you how much tubing do you need. You need 130.39 inches, which is just a hair over 3/8 of an inch. It shows you where to put the marks, what the tilt angle is, you know, if you have a protractor on your tube or whatever. So it shows you all that also. And that's pretty much the bending module itself right there. So let's go ahead, apply and close. Now we're back over here. Now here's the cool thing. If you select the tubing here, notice over here on the right, it says you have a die. Yes. And where it's getting that information from is if we go back to main and we go to the profile library, here's your profile library. This is the part of the program that allows you to define your spring back, your K factors, what dies you have, what dies you don't have. If you notice right here, this one's marked true, this one's marked false. So in the program, if you have the die, you mark it true. You could actually make that design. However, if you're doing a design that you don't have the die, but you want a particular radius and all, then just mark it false. You can still create the design. Anyway, that's another feature of the program. Another things you could do, you could come along and you could edit any individual tube. So let's go ahead and go over to frame, and we're going to edit tubes. And we're going to take this particular tube right here, and I'm getting ready to show you a feature that we're implementing. This time we're going to select another tube, and we're going to select the 1-inch tube, and we're going to make it active. Okay. Now we're going to modify the profile, and we are going to select that, the 1-inch tube. We say OK, and then we're going to apply it. There you go. Notice we have a 1-inch. Now, one of the features I was telling you that they are currently implementing right now, we lost our notch. We lost our cope. So we would have to basically go back in, you know, cut the tubes, select the tube, and apply it to recut the tubing. We are in the process, as I speak, of implementing the feature where it will automatically recoat the tubing. But that shows you how easy it is to change a profile in our software right there. Okay, now let's go ahead and cut that piece of tubing. We're going to close the tool. This time we've done the design, we've done the bending. Now let's go do the cutting part of it. So we're going to apply and close. Let's pick this tube here, and this time we're going to make a job for the selected tube. Remember, I didn't really look and see how long that tube is, and I don't really have to. All right, we're going to save the job. It wants us to always save a job. Now, it's telling you this is the length of your tube right here, 66.04 inches, just shy of 66 1/16 of an inch. So what we're going to do is we want to cut this, and if you look at the ends, you could see the cut marks right here. You could see the normalization of the torch, the whole bit, you know. Now, there's no bends in this particular part. If there was bends, you would actually see the parts for the bend. In fact, I'll show you that in a second. Anyway, since we're going to cut it, we have to add an operation. So we're going to go ahead and add a plasma cutting operation. So we did that. The program, you've already set it to what plasma cutter we're using, so it's going to know what the kerf width is and all. And what we're going to do, we're going to pick this, and you've decided I want 2 of these pieces, okay? You go out to your rack, and you pull up, and you go, well, I've got a piece of tubing that is 150 inches long, so you say, okay, good. Now, just go to Nest Tubes. Come over here. I want a spacing between the tubes so that I could cut it off. And let's just say you want a mid-spacing. We're going to make it big so you could see it easily. We're going to say 4 inches, okay? And then we're going to say Nest Tubes. Now, what this is asking for right here is, let's say you nested a quantity and it won't fit on your tube right here. The program will automatically add tubes to it so that you can complete the job, and it's going to do it on this length right here. So if your tubing is 20 feet long, you would say, hey, new tube length is 240, and then if we hit Nest Tubes, it would create it. But you can see what it did right here. I hit Nest Tubes, and there's your 2 tubes. There's one of them. There's this one right here. And away you go. Now, what I haven't done is I did not order the cuts. In other words, obviously we're going to want it to cut here, 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 and here. I didn't order it. I'm just trying to show you a quick overview of what's going on. Anyway, right now, take the nest, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to run the post processor. We're going to save it as this program. Okay, there's all your G code right here to run our rotary cutter or rotary attachment. Now, we can go ahead and animate. Now, you can also print the cuts, for instance. If you click this print button right here, it will give you templates that you can cut out with a pair of scissors so that you can mark the tubing if you don't have a rotary cutter. Program's capable of that. Let's go to the animate button right here. And at this point here, I can go ahead and animate. So it cut the end. Now it's cutting that one. Now it's cutting that one. So it did order it automatically. I know that was a feature request, so I guess our developers have already implemented it. So it cut it in the correct order. And if you zoom in, you'll see. It'll tell you exactly this is where on the tube it's going to cut it, stuff like that. So that is the cutting part of it. So let's go ahead and let's get out of here. Let's go back to, here's once again, your 2D view, to where it basically unfolds it so you can see what's going on, Now, one feature we are adding to it right now is the ability to rotate the tubing. So if you look right here, you can kind of see that if we rotated this 180 degrees, it could fit in there very tight. That is a feature we're implementing right now, but we're doing it to where instead of you having to do it manually, the software does it automatically. So that's another feature that is in works right now. So let's go ahead and get out of this. Don't want to save the job. Obviously, you can save the job. Now this one here, I'll just show you here real quick. Let's just go ahead and make a job for select the tube. Even though it has square ends that are cut off, once again, it's asking us, telling us to save the job. Sure, we'll do that. Now, here is the reason I brought this in is to show you these are the marks right here. We turn off show. There's your marks on your tubing that will be, let me flip that over, that will be written on the tubing with the marker. And all of our machines can do that. And this is the L, so it'll tell you where to line it up on your die. So this is the actual lead-in. This is where you would line it up on your die, and this is where the bend technically starts bending. So we would create an operation for that. For instance, we would say, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a marker, and we're going to do it on layer 1, and we're going to say, okay, so now, and then if we want to do our cutting, plasma would be layer 0. Now we have 2 operations right here. So if we say nest the tube, let's get on over to here, nest the tube, and we nest it. Now, see what it did? It took that length I mentioned earlier, 240 inches, and it said, okay, you didn't tell me how many pieces of tubing you had. By the way, you could put multiple pieces and different lengths in here, and it will do its best to fit it to your pieces of the tubing that you have. In this case, we didn't tell it once, so it assumed that you wanted to use a brand new piece of tubing, and that's what it did. And now, if we were to run the post processor, we'll save it that weird name. And now, if we were to animate, all right, so you've got it right here. What it's going to do first is it's going to do the markings, so you could see it marking. And then as it moves on, now we could speed that up also. Now as it moves on, eventually it'll get done with all the marking, and then you're going to see it's going to start cutting the tubing. You know, so I just wanted to show you that right there. So let's go ahead and get out of that. Let's get out of that. And then the final feature I'm going to show you is an example if you use an external program. In fact, let's go ahead and let me show you the import feature. And let's see, what can we import? What can we import? Square tube with a helix. Let's see what that is. Our engineers here will create test programs to try to stress the machines. Oh yeah, they did a good job here. We're going to go ahead and detect the features. And what it's doing is it's basically looking for cuts, bends, anything that isn't part of the raw piece of tubing. So let's give it a second. Clearly our engineer went all out on this, and he's got a relatively complicated shape here. Yeah, let's make a job. Let's see what he was doing. Notice we got cuts coming across the shoulder, stuff like that. Clearly, this was a part that was made to make it difficult for our machine to cut. Anyway, we'll save it as, and now you can save it as any job you want. I don't know. Shoot, just call it test. We'll say okay, save it. Okay, there you go. Well, there is the part right there. Now, this is another feature we're working on also right now. That's the ability to blow any of these windows up to full size so that you could tile them or go back. So that is something that we're doing. Now, if I turn off 2D, see the unfolding? If I turn that off, you basically see all the work that the software did right here to normalize everything so that it will be cut, correctly. Now, let's go ahead and do this. This ought to be pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and nest this bad boy. So we've got it. This time we're going to do, I need 6 of these. So we're going to go okay. And we walked out to our rack out there and we found a piece of tubing 40 inches long. So we're going to put that in there. And now there's your tubing. Now the program picked up the shape of the tubing from the raw part. You didn't have to enter all that. It already knew what the size was. So now, and this is the part, by the way. Now in this window here, if you had a structure with multiple tubes, this window here would allow you to select which tubes you want to cut or nest by just clicking on the tube. So you get to see the entire structure, and then you go, oh, I need this sidebar or something. Let me click on it and hurry up and cut it. That's what this particular view allows you to do right here. All right, up here now, let's go ahead and nest that particular part. We don't want much room between them. We don't want maybe ½ an inch spacing between it. Let's leave an inch on the end and an inch on the back. And then we're just going to say nest it. And there you go. So there's all your nested parts right there. It's telling us that you're going to need 15.5 inches of tubing. You can see that right there? 15.5 inches of tubing in order to make those 5 parts. So that's another feature of the software right there. Let's go ahead and close back out of this, and obviously we could put the operation on it, run the animation, all that, but you've already seen that. Let's go and do another import, but this time we are going to import a structure that was made in Fusion 360, I believe. So if we go here, all right, there you go. Do you want to detect the features? Sure, let's detect the feature. But this part here was completely created in Fusion, right on down to all of the copes, notches, bends, everything. And here's another cool feature of our software. I don't want to make a job for it. If I click on this tube right here, it's telling me, yeah, you've got those bends. You could actually make this part. Now, if there was a part in here that it didn't have the bend, it says you have the die, but up here are all dies in stock. No. So there are parts of this frame, I don't know where they're at, that you do not have a die to make it. So you wouldn't want to go in and edit that deal right there. So anyway, this is a part of a selected import from another program. Anyway, that pretty much sums up the features of Camelot. Obviously, there's a lot of features we're going to be adding to the editor and all. Watch the videos on how to use the individual features, and if you come up with any ideas, please share them with us. We're all ears. Anyway, hey, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.